We acknowledge that together we reside, learn, and create on the land of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, Mississauga, Wendake, Neonwencio, and Neutral People.
We seek re-Indigenization. We stand with the Indigenous community and welcome Indigenous voices on this platform. We are grateful to be working and learning on and about this land, and we honor these communities as the traditional stewards of these lands.
Hi there, my name is Simi J. Patoka. My pronouns are they, them.
And hello, my name is Casa Morum, and my pronouns are she, her.
And we are
the Dreaming Divas.
We are a podcast inspired by the Screaming Divas.
And our goal is to create a similar platform, but from the perspective of young singers.
And today we had on the brilliant, the incomparable, the ethereal Amanda Brunk, who is a magnificent educator as well as very knowledgeable in the field of vocology and someone that we both love just so much.
We had so much fun today, and we hope that you enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for more interviews in the future. And
click. Well, hi, Amanda.
Hi, Simi. Hi, Cass.
Cass and I were talking about this yesterday. We were so excited to have you on.
Aww.
I mean, you're just so smart and you know so much, and then you are such a good teacher as well. And then now you're doing so many cool new things as well.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm doing cool new things, but that's me. But I'm so happy to be here with you guys, having known you both in different contexts and, having taught you when you were a little younger and seen you grow. And it's just pretty neat. So thanks for asking.
Of course. A super fun thing that we do at the very beginning is a 60-second life story. If it's over 60 seconds, that's okay, but I will keep count, and then it's just kind of fun to see how close to 60 seconds our guests can get.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
So whenever you're ready, you go ahead and start.
Okay. Well, I was born in Michigan in the United States. I'm actually American. Moved here when I was 6 months old to Waterloo, Ontario. Grew up here and was always into musical theater and singing as a kid. I did my undergrad at Laurier, where I had a vocal hemorrhage on stage, which you might hear about a little bit later on. We might talk about that. And I eventually graduated, but it took me a lot longer than I thought it would. And I started teaching. I've been teaching voice now for 20 years. And I got married in 2001 to Ian Hopkins. I have two wonderful children, Logan and Sophie. They are 15 and 12, just turned 12. And yeah, I know, right? And here we are. We do the Singers Theater in the summers. We've been doing that for almost 20 years. Next year's our 20th anniversary, where we do musical theater in the summertime. And I now teach privately in my voice studio. I teach at Laurier in the contemporary voice studio. And I do like a load of other things, but 60 seconds isn't long enough.
Well, you were very close. I think you're the best time yet. It's 1 minute and 12 seconds.
Not bad.
Okay, ours took like 20 minutes each, so you did really well.
There isn't really a whole lot to say when it all comes down to it. It's like, yeah, I mean, that's my life story.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I'm interested to know, because I know you brought it up in your 60-second life story, and I think Simi and I have spoken and heard that a lot of your passion had come from after having that hemorrhage, and then you wanted to learn more and you just grew. So how did that happen? Or do you want to talk about that time in your life?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I mean, that's a huge part of what's made me who I am as a person, but also what's built my career, because I came to teaching and I came to voice pedagogy through my desire to learn the things that I couldn't find. Yeah. So, and also it's important to talk about these things because there is a big stigma with voice disorders. And it's one of the reasons that I'm really interested in it, and have pursued it under, different umbrellas over the years, and ways to help. But for me personally, I was in my 4th year of my performance degree. And I had always had a rough relationship with my voice. I never learned how to take care of it properly. So let me just say, before I go into this, I don't want anyone listening to get all of a sudden get scared and think, oh, is that going to happen to me? There were lots of reasons. It was kind of a perfect storm brewing for me, and everything happened because of an assortment of reasons. But so I didn't have great vocal hygiene. I'd never really developed good vocal technique, despite the efforts of my undergrad professors. So all of that kind of came together under certain circumstances. And I was cast then in 2 one-act operas, which was very exciting. I was a lead in both, and they were both, running over 2 weekends, I think it was. And I was double cast. The one contralto role I was double cast in with Sophie Roland, who you guys may know. Yeah. And the other one was a light soprano role that I was double cast with Natasha Campbell, who's my best friend, was and is. So there were 2 very different roles. I didn't do them the same night, obviously, but I would go back and forth between them. And on the very last night in the contralto role, I was singing 1 minute and the next, nothing was coming out. My mouth was moving, but nothing was coming out. And long story short, because I don't like to go on too much here, I didn't know what was going on. No one around me knew what was happening. And so no one pulled me off stage, or no one told me to stop singing. So I actually tried to, the show must go on was my musical theater background, voice in my head. So I continued and got off stage eventually and collapsed in a heap because I had had other voice problems that year that weren't as serious, but I was, the frustration and the build of it. And then just, it was really hard and no one knew how to help me. That was the most devastating part. My teachers didn't know what to do. My fellow students were terrified of what was happening to me. So I think, distanced themselves from me, and I couldn't finish my year. So I had my whole degree. I'm sorry, I have a cold. Actually, it's kind of weird for this time of year to say I have a cold, but my daughter came back from camp with a cold, and now the whole family has this like tickle in the back of our nose, but it's not COVID. We've been tested, it's not COVID.
I was gonna say better cold than COVID.
Yes, definitely. Although it's frustrating, because I'm like, oh, there we go. I sound like I've got my voice disorder again. So yes, I didn't know how to find help. The next few years were really hard. I would go to doctors and surgeons trying to find out what was going on, why I still couldn't sing, because I couldn't sing after that. I got told everything under the sun. You are, it's all in your head. There's nothing wrong. I can't see anything wrong with you. It's allergies. I spent years doing naturopathic allergy, Chinese medicine, allergy shots, all that stuff. I was told a million different things by mostly local doctors, but also doctors in Toronto. And I also couldn't finish my degree because the only credit I had left to finish was my grad recital, and I couldn't sing it. And I wasn't given any, anything that I could do separately to get my credit. So I just had no degree. So I waitressed for a few years. I cried a lot. I traveled to Europe twice by myself, backpacked around Europe. that was probably one of the things that saved me, my mental health anyway. And years started to go by, and that's when I got involved with Nats around that time, and started to go and research for myself. I would go to symposiums and to conferences and everything I could get my hands on. And I started reading the journals and knowing who was doing the work out there that was related to what I was struggling with, as far as I knew, because I didn't really know. And so I started going to these things. And even then, you know, I would think something was wrong based on what I was learning, and I'd jump on that, and then I realized that that was not the thing. And so it was a frustrating time, incredibly frustrating. And all that time, I was trying to bring the things I was learning and teach my studio. So I started teaching a studio because I started realizing I know things that I didn't know when I was a student that I think can help younger singers. And even though my voice wasn't working well, I was still able to start teaching and learning from that. So it kind of, my teaching and my exploration into my own personal discovery and education kind of went hand in hand. They kind of happened at the same time, which I think is one of the reasons I really am an advocate for SNATs, for student NATs chapters, because I do think that the teaching kind of can start with the learning, and that actually that can be really beneficial to do it together. For me anyway, that's how it was. So this is where I get confused because the timeline gets woven around. A few years after I left Laurier, Dan Lichty, who's a friend of mine, heard my story. I was telling my story in a group one day, and he was like, and he had just started at Laurier. He started at Laurier the year that I left, I believe, or around that time. And he said, "This isn't okay. We need to get you your degree. This isn't okay." And he knew he couldn't, he wasn't a doctor, he couldn't like fix me, but he knew that this was kind of an injustice that he wanted to help me with. And because of him, the deans had changed. So he convinced the new dean to allow me to re-audition into the program, which was fun. Because I still couldn't sing very well at all. I was faking it real good, but still couldn't sing and still didn't know why. And but I re-auditioned into the program. He advocated for me. He took me into his studio, and we did a year, my 4th year of lessons and masterclasses and a recital. And it was terrible. It was terrible mentally for me. I cried every day. I was this, weird old woman in the back seat of masterclass weeping because I would hear these voices so free and open, and then I'd have to get up, and I knew how it would feel locked and closed and terrible. And it was so hard, so frustrating. One of the hardest years of my life, if not the hardest year. Well, the last few have been a struggle, but it was really hard. And Dan was amazing. He really, and I know Cassie, you worked with Dan at the beginning, didn't you, when you started? Yeah. He, for me, as a human being, he didn't know what to do, vocally, but he was kind, he was patient, he listened, and he gave me rep that I could semi-handle, and I sang a grad recital, which was miraculous, and I got my undergrad. So, that was a day, let me tell you, that was a day. Yeah. And so fast forward a little bit then, I had a few more fun experiences where I was misdiagnosed. I started going to the States to really seek out the people I wanted to work with. One of the best things I ever did was the week-long intensive with Richard Miller. If you guys have heard that name, he wrote The Structure of Singing and many other books. And a lot of my teaching is based on much of what he wrote and what he taught. So I got to spend a week with him in an intensive, and they brought in a laryngologist with a scope, and they scoped people on stage. And I was like, oh, maybe this is my chance, So I got picked, and they scoped me on stage. So here I am on stage in front of 40 singers from across the US. And the guy says, "Oh yeah, I think you've got a cyst on there." I was like, "A cyst? That's a new one," but okay. Went back to my dorm. bawled my face off, freaked right out.
Yeah.
You know, and it wasn't a cyst. It looked like a cyst. And so we're getting closer to the truth here, because these things started to happen where they were seeing things, and this is such a good example of why voice disorders are so complicated and diagnoses are so difficult, because even people who know what they're looking at, who have all the training there is to get, don't necessarily always know what they're seeing, because it's so challenging when it's in vivo, when it's in the person, you're trying to figure out what's going on. Okay, so that was one of the experiences. And then one of the last worst, maybe, ones was I went to New York City to spend a week with this woman who I'd read about. She'd done her dissertation on personality connected with voice disorders, which is very interesting work, very cool work. And she's well renowned. She's a speech pathologist, voice therapist. And she was at the time one of the only ones I could find anywhere. And I won't say her name, but I went to her, you know, little, it wasn't a studio, it was like an office where she saw clients. And she scoped me. And actually, I just recently found the VHS tape of my scope. And it's like 15 minutes long. Like, she spent a long time with me. And she was this really big personality, really cool woman. And she spent a long, long time. Like, nowadays, when you go, you get, like, if you're lucky, 20 seconds, and that's it. Yeah. But she was having me do all sorts of things, and I have it all on VHS. Anyway, so anyway, she yeah, we spent some time together, and she said, "Well, my dear, I hate to tell you, but you were barbecued." And oh, this is the part of the story I forgot to tell you. So I had had laser surgery on it to remove a cyst before my vocal hemorrhage. This is important, and I totally missed it. That had happened 2 months before my vocal hemorrhage. But I was given the go-ahead to sing again. And so when my vocal hemorrhage happened, I just thought, oh, here we go again. I just thought something's wrong again. So she said to me, you've been barbecued, meaning the laser surgery went wrong and you have a scar on your vocal fold. So again, new diagnosis, totally new in my brain. I was like, what? And so I left, of course, weeping, crying. What do I do now? I have a scar on my vocal fold, which she said won't heal. There's nothing you can do. So she tried to do some voice therapy with me. It wasn't good. She did lots of like really harsh, pulling my tongue out really roughly and things that didn't feel good. So that was my experience with voice therapy. Then finally, a few years later, I went to Philadelphia to see Robert Sadaloff, who is one of the most, the busiest researchers in voice disorders, and has a wonderful voice team there, or did at the time, with SLPs and singing voice specialists and ear doctors and everyone working together. So I spent a week with them. They took my history. And the biggest thing was they listened to me. And when they listened to me, they heard me say that I'd had a cyst and surgery to remove it. I had spent 2 months rehearsing operas with no problems, and then had an immediate problem on stage. So they said, well, clearly your surgery didn't go wrong because you were singing for 2 months. And I was like, oh yeah, duh. Which she was such, my New York lady was such an extrovert. She wasn't a listener. She was like, what do I see? What do we do? Do, And I'm like that a lot too in my teaching. And so I got a proper diagnosis. Finally, they said, what looks like happened is you had a vocal hemorrhage on stage. You continued to sing. You didn't get immediate attention and you didn't stop. And so you do have scarring from this vocal hemorrhage. And then, of course, a ton of muscle tension, dysphonia from compensating for this injury for so many years and not knowing how to handle it and trying to sing through it and all the things. So permanent scar on my vocal fold, plus MTD. And so I did a little bit of voice therapy. My first real beneficial voice therapy in Philadelphia with a woman there named Peggy Baruti, who is a wonderful, wonderful human. And came home, that was probably 15 years ago. Just continued with my teaching, continued with my learning, but still kind of had plateaued with this stuff that I couldn't fix. I went to see a bunch of other people, tried to find people here in Toronto and Hamilton, and just kind of like plateaued. And then it wasn't until a couple years ago that I went back to Peggy. It was during COVID. I got Zoom lessons with Peggy and a couple other people. And I just decided I was going to start to fix what I could. Wow. And I have come so far with it. I've been told by 2 SLPs who've strobed me and scoped me and watched my function and have said that my scars probably, it's not a bad scar, and it could probably get close to 100% function, but it's always going to be there. So that's a good sign. And then I'm constantly working on muscle release, which we all are. And so something else that I've done a lot of work with is the Linklater voice work, which is, I don't know if you want to talk about that, but that's been a huge game changer for me in my muscle release and my breath. And it's speech work, but I apply it to my singing, and it's like a new voice for me. So I don't know. I'm sorry, that's a really long-winded story, but that's what it is.
No, it's so interesting. And I think it's so wonderful that you not only are on this journey with all of this history of injury and learning for yourself, but then applying it to your students without knowing fully how it feels to feel their voice, and haven't felt that in a long time. Because one thing that I remember talking to you about on that wonderful last dinner of the program that I was doing with you was the empath side of you as a teacher. Because I think one of the questions somebody had asked you was, how do you know what they're feeling, or how do you know how to work with them when you don't have the voice that they have? And that's a huge thing, which you are very good at. I can speak from experience. So how did you come to that conclusion?
Oh, thank you, Simi. That means a lot to hear that from you. Well, I mean, the empathy came from the pain of not being heard for so long, and not having anybody be able to help me, or even really try for a while. You know, you go to the doctor's office and they're so busy, and you're in and out. And anyone who's ever had a voice problem and had to go to the doctor for it knows what I'm talking about. It's very rare that you will meet someone where you don't get a sense of, oh, what did you do to yourself? Or just not to know what's happening. The work that I've been doing in vocology, or the training that I've been getting in vocology, has been a bright beacon of hope for me and the world in terms of voice therapy and what's out there now, because the people that are doing this work now are the people like what you're saying, Simi. They are listeners, they are empathetic, they are putting themselves in your shoes and without stigma. And it's, you know, it all comes down to that for me. And again, linking to the Linklater, though actors are very empathic, just as humans. Their hearts open to their work in a way that as trained singers, we don't necessarily learn how to do. Some of us know how. I should say some people know how. I don't think I've gotten there yet to the place I want to, but I have found that the actors who come to the Linklater work have such open hearts, and you know, they're there to figure out how to let their breath move their voices so that they can express that space. You know, they come to it from a different place, but those open-hearted people are just like, there is no stigma there. It's all about expression and sharing yourself through this voice that you own, because it's you, it is who you are, you know. So that I can safely and surely tell you, there are so many people out there who are now, who have that, who own that. And I hope you meet them.
I only met one of them, so
Oh. I think, and just to tag on to that, I do think it comes from stepping outside of the world of classical Western, I want to say pedagogy, like the world of classical Western voice music training, if that makes sense. There is a long-standing centuries tradition of how to teach singing, and it's changing for sure. And you guys are on the front end of it. You know these people, you've worked with these people who are seeking out, you know, what's new and what's happening in the world. And it's happening and it's changing quickly. But it's still the foundation of what's been safe and known is still very much there. And that isn't safe for many of us. And that's a loaded statement that I just made, and maybe that's a different podcast, but but I guess what I'm saying is that the training we get maybe doesn't allow for us to connect so much with that empathy side of expression.
Yeah.
So sorry, I have one more question. So in your lessons, like, how do you apply the vocology knowledge that you've gained to the students directly? Like, of course, like from my lessons, like we do technique work, we use vocal warm-ups, and then we do rep work, we sing our rep. Like, how do you directly apply that to the student?
Okay, well, is it okay if I kind of give a little definition of what vocology is? Because I think many people don't know.
I was doing it before this, and I saw that it was like, because you were saying like nobody knows what I'm going through, and I was like, well, yeah, because vocology was only like started in '89 or something like that, right? It was so weird. I was like, oh, this is new science.
You know what? The funny thing is, there's nothing new about it. It's just a new approach. It's a new approach because it's bringing disciplines together. It's an interdisciplinary model of bringing together all these disciplines that normally have worked with voices for so long, but never talked to each other. And that's what's been missing. That's what I was missing. You know, in all my years of searching, was nobody was talking to each other, and so nobody could help. And what vocology, it's many, many things, and that's why the training for it is really intense and insane. But in a nutshell, it brings together the science, the physiology, the acoustics, the physics of how we make sound, and then bringing that together with voice disorders, what can go wrong, and then who's out there to help, and how can we bring all those people together, talking to each other and knowing what they can do to be the best, to best serve the client, the person who's having the problem. And voice habilitation is a term that you may want to be familiar with, and it's not rehabilitation. The rehabilitation is what the speech pathologists do through voice therapy. And though, you know, all of these fields are still growing so much, there's still so much we don't know. But right now, voice therapy is done by speech pathologists who have voice training. So many of the people who do the vocology training are speech pathologists who don't have voice specialization, because they don't get that, you know, automatically in their training. So there's those people. There's laryngologists who are ENTs, ear, nose, throat surgeons, who specialize in the larynx, which again is not a given. They have to go outside of their regular practice to seek out this training and to learn. So there were laryngologists in my program, or ENTs wanting to specialize in laryngology. You know, singing teachers, obviously, we're the ones who seek this stuff out probably more than anyone, because we're the ones who see the voices that need the help. But we kind of sit here going, well, what's my role? How can I do this? It used to be that a voice doctor would just say, okay, now go work with your voice teacher. And, you know, but if they were doing the same thing they were doing before when they got their problem, you know, that may not be the best thing for them. So the habilitation element is teaching, good voice habits, vocal hygiene, knowing knowing enough about the voice to make sure the voice is safe and healthy and ready to do the things of, a professional voice user needs to be able to do. And then assisting in the rehabilitation process or coming in afterwards, as a voice teacher, knowing what has happened in the voice therapy room so that you can then build on that. And because generally voice therapy will only be about 6 to 8 sessions for, someone with a problem. And that voice therapist kind of expected to like get the job done in that time. Sometimes they can, sometimes maybe they can't. So it's a way for, voices that are trying to improve can come back to their teacher or their vocalogist, voice teacher, and say, okay, this is what I've done. Can we move on from this into the singing voice therapy, or no, I shouldn't use the word therapy, the singing voice specialization of continuing. Anyway, so that's, and now I've forgotten the question you actually asked me.
It was
how do I bring it into the studio? Yeah. Well, okay, so I think I just answered it. Like, I think teaching the students or clients how to use their voice. It sounds pretty basic, but what's okay to do, what's not okay to do, what you should do in this situation or that situation to maintain a healthy voice. And if there's a disordered voice or something that if I hear maybe there's a lump or bump going on somewhere, to refer them out, until I know what's happening and we've seen what they've seen, and I can hopefully see as well. Sometimes I will be able to have access to the the videos and the records to see what's going on there, and then to be able to, there's a word that I want, kind of follow through, follow through to bring them back into habilitation. I guess. So with my healthy students, for me, a big part of vocology also is teaching pedagogy. So motor learning, perceptual learning, and the ways that we learn best. It was fascinating for me to learn this stuff this summer because I didn't know a lot of it. And there's a lot of really solid science behind perceptual motor learning. So I'd encourage any of your listeners to go and look at that, because it's changed my teaching completely, like from the last time I saw you, Simi, even. So, and it's great. It's wonderful. It's just wonderful to keep up with what's going on out there, keep reading, read lots of articles and bring that in and try it out.
Yeah. No, I definitely think this is so interesting. And I've only worked with you in the capacity of being in singers theater, but I never really had a vocal injury in university, but I struggled with, I had to get my tonsils and my adenoids removed. And for so long, I was singing through sickness. And after I decided to find a speech voice therapist in London, actually, who was a speech pathologist, but also worked with singers specifically. But coming back to Laurier, like seeing like a teacher, it was kind of just not talked about, you know what I mean? But there were habits that I had created when I was sick, singing through that I knew I had to work through, but the teacher really didn't understand that at that time. So I think this is something that's really important, even in that capacity, because I had no idea exactly what was happening, but I knew like I had bad habits and I wanted to change them. So, wow.
And that's that's the link we're talking about. Exactly what you just described, that missing link that many of us have experienced. And it's not because the teacher doesn't care or doesn't want to help or doesn't know a lot of things, it's just that's vocology. If anybody ever asks you to tell them that story, oh my gosh, I'm getting so emotional. I'm sorry that you had to go through that for so long. And now look at you thriving. So, but it really truly is the thing that pushed me to continue seeking. And now I don't feel like I've found anything, but I feel like I found my tribe, because like I said to you, the people that are doing this work are like just open-hearted, empathic, beautiful humans who love singers, who love the human voice. And I mean, being around people like that, it changes. It's a little bit scary because it's changed my perception of everything that I do.
Yeah.
And I've had to rethink, and I'm still rethinking everything that I do. So that'll be fun. I don't really know what that's going to look like, but all I know is that I love being able to say that I could help you with that disconnect in that moment, that I might be able to at least refer you or know how to help you get what you need in that moment of disconnect.
Yeah.
I would love to pivot to musical theater and CCM singing, because this is something you are very knowledgeable about. You completely changed the way I belted, but we call it mix. And yes, I remember. And I would love, because you said you started with an interest in musical theater and stuff like that, but like I said, you changed the way I learned how to belt in, and much love to my teachers from the past, but you knew the most about it. How did you gain that knowledge?
Well, the good thing about me being a blabbermouth and talking so much is I've probably covered a lot of this already. And you know, to add to that, like I learned some things this summer because in the vocology training that I did at the Summer Vocology Institute, by the way, it's at the University of Utah. Dr. Ingo Titze, you may have heard of him. He's the godfather of all vocology. We call him that. He doesn't call himself that. But he was our professor, and we had to take a course called Principles of Voice Production. And I could show you the textbook. It's insane. It's you know, when you look at math and you only see, it's not even numbers, it's like symbols that you've never seen before. It was 3 weeks of that. And I am not a math person. I cried every day. It was so hard because they insist that you learn everything about the physics of the movement of breath, the propagation of sound, the shape of the tubes in your filter, right? Like and there were so many days where I'm like, I don't need to know this. What is happening? And then there comes a day where I'm like, I needed to know that. Yeah. Because and I'm coming to your question, because everything we do with our voice can be explained in math. And Dr. Titze is such a lovely human because he is so sweet in how he explains that. Like he's so passionate about math and physics. Like he's a physicist, but he's a singer, and he sang for us this beauty. He's turned 80 years old when we were together. And he is so passionate about music, but he's like, everything we do can be explained in math. And to me, that just something clicked, because I was like, it's not just, you know, it's not just in my mind what the registration is doing, and in my mind what my lips are doing, and in my mind what I mean, yes, our imagination helps us shape the vocal tract and all that stuff. But it was when I realized that everything was, it works or it doesn't. And this is why. So my mind exploded at that point, because I was doing a lot of the things already, but I was doing them kind of, what's the word when you just tell a story, but you don't really know the reason behind it?
We are not words people. I'm gonna press.
It's a research methods word. Anyway, it was narrative. It was only my narrative, you know, my experience and what I was told to say kind of stuff that I was doing, which worked a lot of the time, not always. There were times, and there'll always be those times, you know, when you're teaching, when you say, I'm not sure what's happening here. I gotta think about this. But figuring out exactly why something is happening is great. And there's so many people who know the why. Like, I'm not saying I'm the only one. I just kind of clued into it.
Yeah.
But knowing the why, I think, is kind of the thing I'm saying. Why does something work? And then, because every human is different, and every mind is different, and every body is different, and every vocal tract shape is different, and every life experience that brings us to how we manage our breath is different, then we have to look at the person in front of us and guide them to find what works. Knowing what works, but for this person, it's going to be a totally different way to try to help them find that for themselves. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, I'm very excited about everything that's happening right now.
And if there's, if you're asking me, like, how did I come to my knowledge, or I would even say my knowledge, but how do I learn to do things the way I do things? It's just listen, read, find the people who are doing great work and talk to them and learn from them. And that's what I did.
Yeah.
And it worked. So
it's a process. It's always a process. There's so many times where I'm like, I don't know what I'm doing, but then I ask for help.
I'm so glad that you spoke about it in terms of it's all just explained through math, because I am not a biology person, and anytime, as much as I want to know more about anatomy, every time I read about it or talk about it, I'm like, oh, I've just lost complete interest because I don't care about memorizing all these things. But seeing it from the point of view of physics is way more interesting to me. So I'm very excited to jump into that, like, right after we end this.
Awesome. Yeah, it is really quite cool, especially when you can find online now lots of really interesting graphics. Because I'm not a visual person. If you tell me, that the air particles are bouncing back and forth, hitting each other, and propagating the sound this way, and then even though they come to the end of it, a tube is shaped differently, that changes the negative or positive pressure of the air. Like, you could tell me that, and I could be like, you're telling me words. I hear your words and I understand English, but that's as far as it goes. But there's graphics online that you can find, and oh my goodness, I forget the name of, it would take me too long to look it up. I could send you a link later, maybe. There is a link of a guy who does these really cool graphics for sound propagation and all sorts of things with vocal tract acoustics and stuff. So yeah, I'll look it up and send it to you so you can add that.
Cool. We'll put it in the description box too if anybody else wants to look at it.
Yeah, sure.
Did you want to talk about the Singers Theater a little bit?
Sorry. Singers Theater, the Singers Theater was probably the thing that saved me, because when I didn't have my degree. No, that's not true. I just had gotten my degree before I started Singers Theater. I got a small inheritance from my grandfather who had passed. And I bought a used car, and then I decided I wanted to do a show because I had been teaching my students, a few students, for a while. And I had one student who at the time was 16 who ended up starring on Broadway in Beautiful. So at the time, I had him and a couple others who were fabulous, just like him. And I was like, I want to do a show. And Les Mis School Edition had just come out. So I put my money towards that, and we started our first Singers Theater show. It was a 2-week summer intensive where we put together a full book musical in 2 weeks. And Cass, you did The Boys in the Photograph. It was such a good show. Part of the mandate was always to do stuff that's not really being done, like to provide opportunities for teenagers who would never be able to do that show. Like, no one's going to do it. We did a lot of shows that like aren't ticket sellers, like they're not big names, they're not hot sellers. And I tried to steer away from the big name shows. We've done a couple, but I tried to always find things that were off the grid, like people didn't really know very well, but that had huge ensembles, because we always wanted the big ensemble singing, and I wanted to support local singers. So we did that, and it was awesome. We've had amazing shows, and then it turned into a junior intensive as well, where the kids write a little show. And so the last few years, of course, it's been COVID summers. So we've tried to do a few online offerings, but it's certainly not the same. And next year's our 20th anniversary. I have some ideas. I'm not really sure what's going to happen, but I do have some ideas. So I don't really know what to say about that, but we do have a website, and there's lots of cool pictures and stuff on the website, thesingerstheatre.ca. Yeah, and the Music Theatre Academy at Laurier also, which Simi did, is pretty great. So that's a 3-week music theater kind of belting for classical singers, but also a little bit more. And that's been morphing as well. We're changing it as we go. I think this year we might actually do a book musical, or like a review, like an actual review. That's what I'm thinking. So I'm not sure, but we shall see.
That's so exciting. I think the Musical Theater Academy was such a good idea because there's not much like that in Canada. Like, there's plenty of summer programs like that in the States, but like, who wants to pay that exchange rate? Who wants to pay for housing there when you can do it here? And I think for me, it was just such a perfect thing at the time. Completely changed how I sang, and all of the acting master classes and programs. The dance was really fun. And like each aspect you learn a lot from. It's not just about the singing, but it's like we're mainly there for the singing, you know?
Well, we should get you to put a testimonial on the website, because that's awesome.
Sure.
It's tough because
and be like, there you go.
Oh, awesome. No, that's great. I mean, because we did it for only a few years before COVID hit, and then we haven't done it. So it's tough, right? You're kind of like, how to know how to proceed and continue, but hearing that from you is helpful.
But Singers Theater was actually, I think, the most pivotal time in my voice life, because I had done choirs in school, and I had done KW Glee, which was very very different from what I felt like was my path. But I don't even know how did I decide to do singers? I have no idea. But from that moment,
I think Beth might have nudged you a little bit.
I didn't meet Beth yet. It was because of Singers Theater that I found Beth.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. I don't know how I found Singers Theater. Maybe because
you might have had a friend who did it.
Liam Clark. I knew Liam Clark because of orchestra.
That's what it was. Youth orchestra.
Yeah.
Yes, that's what it was. Because didn't I come to conduct you? I conducted, right, with the Grand Philharmonic Youth Choir. I came and conducted you. I remember you were playing. Was that Vivaldi's Gloria?
Yes.
Yes. So we did that at Center Square.
Oh my.
And you, I didn't add that to my life story. I conducted a choir for 8 years too. We'll throw that in.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you came and asked me about it, because maybe Andrea probably wrangled you. That's what it was.
Because it was at that point in my life where I was like, I kind of had an inkling that I wanted to sing. And doing Singers Theater was scary for me, because I did KW Glee, but I was kind of the worst one there. They were like, we're going to put this girl in the back. She doesn't know.
Well, you had this big, round, beautiful voice. What did you sing? You sang that beautiful anthem with the Boys in the Photograph is about the Irish Catholic conflict in Ireland, Northern Ireland.
Yes, I sang the anthem part. Oh my God.
Yeah. It was a gorgeous moment. Your voice just kind of was like the solo voice with nothing else. And then all of the orange and green banners, because all of the two sides coming together, and gourd choreography with the orange and green banners doing the.
Yes. And it was that summer where I was like, I think I want to sing. I think I can do this. It was that.
I did not know that. I thought you'd been singing a long time before that.
So I met Lauren Brock, who had went to KCI with me. And she said, you need to get lessons with Beth. that was my grade 12 year. I started lessons in September and I auditioned in January for voice and quit violin.
And now look at you.
It was crazy. Like Singer Theater was super pivotal in my.
Can you write me a testimonial too? I need to hear these things because after 2 years of no theater, you know how you feel? You feel like it didn't mean anything. Nobody wants to do it. And it feels really hard to know how, even if it's worth starting back again. It's been devastating to the heart a little bit.
No, without Singer Theater, I wouldn't actually be singing. I do not think.
Oh my goodness.
You did. I feel like you did kind of answer this question throughout the whole kind of interview, but a question that we love to ask everybody is, what is your why? And if you wanted to just sum that up, I think it would be beautiful.
Yeah, I used to think that my why was all the stuff I told you before. But I think now that's changed, or deepened maybe. Not changed, of course that's why, but I think it is to open my heart to the expression of the soul. If that sounds cheesy, but why do any of us? And to help someone express their soul is like a level higher.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that, like, to hear you say that you had moments of feeling like you could do that when we were working together, that's the only thing I need to hear that will carry me forward through a pandemic, hearing words like that, because that's all we're here to do as teachers, I think.
Yeah.
I think I've said this in a previous episode, I love when you can tell the why without them saying it.
Yeah.
You said that, I was like, oh yeah, I that makes sense. I feel that when I work with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that. Thank you for re-inspiring me. I haven't been teaching. I've been taking a big break as well, and come back a little bit to it. And it's been good. Like, I've got some new fun stuff that I'm trying. But that is very inspiring for me to remember. So thank you for making me say that out loud.
If you ever need a hype up, give me a call and I will make you feel real good about yourself.
I think I knew that already. Yeah.
I talk about you frequently with Beth, and I'm just like, oh, Amanda's just like so great. It's so fun. But it's like the Nats people that I have worked with thus far, I'm like, they're all so different, but they all are of the same value and have the same core values. And what do I call? I think I call like you, Beth, and Shannon like the Three Musketeers or something like that. Because
that's so funny.
I worked with all three of you, and you're all just like so like rich in knowledge and aware of the body and all this. It's good things.
Well, that's another thing that I think is so valuable and important in the work that we do is collegiality. Like, that's why I'm a huge Nats nerd, because I I just think we need to like talk to each other and like each other and refer to each other and all the things, because when you have that, you don't feel so alone. You know, it's the same with performing. You know, you can find a way to like have that collegiality without so much competition. I mean, there's the competition, but really it's about lifting each other up, because we're all here to tell stories. And Cass, you can only do it your way, right? And the person next to you can't do it the way you can, and they can't do it and vice versa, right? Yeah. So keeping that in mind, like I have to keep that in mind a lot too as teachers, just be like, I think this person is gonna benefit from Shannon with this thing more than me. And to be able to say that is very freeing, first of all. But also really does, when somebody refers somebody to you and says that to you, like, I really think you'd work well with this person. That's a huge amount of trust that you've been given. And I think that's the reason that I'm glad to hear that you sense that, because I think that's really important to all of us.
Oh, rapid fire? Are you upset, Cass?
I'm bad at these. I'll just warn you. I take too long. Do I have to think? Do I have to say it right away, or can I think?
You can think.
Okay.
You certainly won't take as long as we did.
This is like absolutely the opposite of rapid fire. We took like 7 minutes per answer. Like so bad.
Rapid fire. Did you want to start or did you want me to start?
You start.
Okay. Amanda,
Yes.
who do you fan person over?
Like a celebrity or a singer.
I was just saying this the other day. Oh my God, Colin Fiore. 100%. Every day for the rest of my life.
A very set in stone answer.
Yeah, well, from the time I was like, I don't know, 8 years old, and I first saw him do Shakespeare at Stratford, that was it. And then we started doing musicals. I was like, I'm done. And now I've worked with his wife. She's come to Singers Theatre a couple times, and she's amazing. The great and wonderful Donna Fiore. Oh my goodness. So both of them, maybe both of them. Actually, can I say both of them?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
That was really cool.
Oh, okay, my turn. Sorry. This one's deep. If you weren't a singer or a teacher, what would you be?
Yes. I mean, I love science, but I don't know what I would do with it. So I would be a Shakespearean actor.
Oh, yes.
Good for
That's
you.
what I always wanted to be.
Wow, good for you. I can't understand a thing they say.
Oh, that's why I do Linklater. I do all my Shakespeare through Linklater. It makes me happy.
Oh, that's very cool. What composer from any era, this can include musical theater, would you like to talk to?
Lin-Manuel Miranda, let's be honest. I know that's so cliche, but there it is.
No, that's a good answer. He's got a lot to say.
Yeah.
Okay, next. This is a fun question. Describe yourself in 3 words. It's very hard.
Do you know, I just did a barter. So I gave voice lessons to a woman who I met, who's a style image consultant, and I got styled. So in order to find your style statement, you have to do this exercise and you have to create a style statement using some of these words. And it is hard. It's very hard. Oh my gosh. Okay. I would say, oh my gosh. Like, I want to say difficult, but I think I mean stubborn. So stubborn, maybe stubborn is a little more positive. Stubborn. And I want to say passionate. I love life loving. I like life.
Yeah.
Celebrating life, if that's a way of putting it into one word.
Those are 3 really powerful.
No. I was trying to think of something gentle, but I don't have a lot of gentle in me, I don't think.
That's first one. Immediately she was like punctual. I thought it was so accurate, especially the way she said it. It was so immediate.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
That is funny. Okay.
Oh.
What is your party trick?
Do you have one?
Oh, I bet I have a ton of them. That's my celebrating life thing. My party trick. I make a mean hot sauce, like fresh hot peppers from my garden. If you like it spicy, I can hook you up. That is my party trick.
Next one. If you could travel anywhere in the world, where would you go?
Anywhere? I would go anywhere. Oh God, Orkney, Scotland. Oh, can I have a list? Orkney, Scotland, Italy.
Yes.
Paris. I
Nice.
should say New Zealand because my brother lives there and I've never been there, but it's too far. I don't want to go there right now. And Newfoundland.
If God exists, what do you want to hear them say as you walk through the pearly gates?
It's a deep one.
I love that. Did you have fun?
Yeah.
Don't nod your head yes. I have things to say.
It's a big game, isn't it? Just do the best we can with it and have some fun.
Yeah.
Those are good questions.
Who took you to your first opera / who'd you go with / what was it?
First one. Oh, I'm going to mix them up. It was at the Vienna Opera House. It was L'Italian in Algerie. And it was a friend of my parents, a long time colleague of my dad's.
Wow.
Who took me. Yeah.
That is the coolest one I've heard yet, to be honest.
And I'm gonna kick myself, but I'm pretty sure. I want to say it was Agnes Belza, but I don't think it was. I saw her in a different one. But it might have been her. I can't remember. Ooh, I'm not sure.
It's so
It was
cool.
a while ago.
Super casual. No,
It would have been like in 1997, something like that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's my dream to go to Vienna. That
It was my and L'Italian in Algerie, like that was my, I wanted to sing. I actually sang that aria. I killed that aria in third year. I was seriously on the road to some coloratura, surprisingly.
Oh, Beth would love that.
Then it all came down. No, just kidding. That's not funny. That's not funny at all.
Throw in some
Little Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah, just a little Chaplin. No problem.
No problem.
What is a non-musical hobby?
My what?
Your non-musical hobby.
Besides making hot sauce? I often laugh about this. I don't think musicians have hobbies, do we? Like we do our hobby. I don't know. I don't know if I have a hobby. I run, but that's just because I have to. I love getting outside every day and getting a little bit of exercise. And yeah, I do like running, and I like cooking, even though I'm not very good at it. I really love eating. So maybe that's my hobby.
Yes.
Eating and drinking with friends is my hobby.
Yes. Love it. And this is the last rapid fire. Sorry, it has not been rapid. I've been to myself. What advice would you give to your younger self?
How young?
Like, let's say like.
I'd go young. Like I would give, can I choose how young?
Yeah, you choose.
I would say love yourself more. Know your worth.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll take a little bit of that now too. Yeah.
Yeah, me too. Me too. We forget to be kind to ourselves, don't we?
Thank you so much. Oh my God. It feels so happy. And like, you know, these conversations are something that I like look for. They mean something. They make us think and reflect. And I'm so grateful that you were here for this. And I hope you do know now that you have impacted both of us. And now Simi and I have come together and are able to chat about you and say, yes,
it's amazing. It's amazing that you guys are doing this and you are so good at it. Like I've never felt so safe and listened to and heard. But thank you for asking me. It's such an honor of all the, amazing people that you know. Good luck, because this is great stuff. It's very
Thank
exciting.
you.
But thanks for having me. It was really fun.
Oh my gosh, such a pleasure always. I'm gonna hit the stop button now.
Stop.
Oh, you are so beautiful. You know that?